right, good morning, guys. Morning. You know, I'm excited to be here with Joel. Day before yesterday, a lot of stuff I spoke about, I wouldn't be able to have gone through such an adventure and learned all those things if I didn't have somebody to learn it with. So all those two previous businesses I've worked with Joel on, and also the few that I didn't talk about, which didn't succeed in the same way. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to give you a little bit of a background of Joel and myself, and then later open up the space of what we're gonna be talking about today. So this is a blog post I made in April 4th, 2008, where we were launching our first business. I'm gonna read it out to you guys. It's almost 5 a.m. now. We've been working since 3 p.m. See Joel pounding away on the bed. Pounding away on his laptop, I mean. Then there's me, doing what young men do in the wee hours of the morning on a computer. Right? Launching new businesses. Okay, we're referring to youthsays.com, which is like older business. Because of some last minute bugs, couldn't get it launched, okay, and me, I'm halfway in dreamland. Bzzz, okay, sleep. So clearly my juvenile sense of humor has not changed. I have not grown up at all. From here, we went on to, can you show the next picture? We went on to hug a stuffed tiger. After that, we launched, as Steph had mentioned, we launched a business called Says.com, which we sold to a larger media group, and also Group Small, which was later sold to Groupon. Then today, Joel takes care of Groupon Asia Pacific. No, Groupon Asia, right? The whole, I don't even know anymore. the whole Groupon Asia is a $700 million business overseeing 2,500 employees, was it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2,500 employees. So it's kind of a tough job, and that's what kind of he's busy on now. And for myself, I've went on after those two businesses to start investing in other businesses, using 500 startups as a vehicle. So, and I mentioned that to you yesterday. But at the same time, both Joel and myself were working on a third company at the same time, which is that the public listed company which bought Says.com, we're going to be merging with a lot of other media companies to create a very large digital media conglomerate. And that's called Rev. So that's the third thing we're working on. So throughout this journey, we've been through different things, different experiences as business partners. And what we'll be talking about here today is something I told Vision that I don't think gets talked about enough. He had wanted to invite me and Joel to speak, and we were discussing topics. I told Vision, a lot of conferences, media, they talk about the hero's journey. They talk about Steve Jobs, oh my God, genius, changed the world. They talk about Google, such an amazing, huge company, Sergey Brin and Larry Page. But I do not talk so much about the working relationship between Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. How did Larry Page and Sergey Brin, how did they work together to build that business? And we know they built it, but what went on in between? So I have never talked about that with Joel before. So you can say it was unconscious competence or sort of unconscious incompetence at the same time, working along the way. And I think today what we're going to do is an early morning session is to throw the questions back at you guys and get some questions from you guys on the thoughts, business partnerships, what questions you guys have, what struggles you guys have, and then we're going to get a discussion around this. So anybody right now is looking for a business partner? So who's already got a business partner, a co-founder? It's a good amount of you guys. So I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is familiar space. I've already used a lot of you as guinea pigs the past couple of days, and we're trying out a couple of questions. Do you guys have any questions you want to? Who wants to start the ball rolling with a question? Yourself.
Okay, so from your perspective, when looking for a partner, what is the primary first thing that you consider? Is it the way you relate, or is it something to do with business? What is the key that you look out for in a partner for something that you want to run long term?
Okay, great. Next question. We're going to get a bunch of questions, and we're going to see the space. We're going to feel this out.
And then leading off his question, once you found a partner, do you immediately start off with a practice? Like, okay, so this is what we're going to do every day. We're going to start off with this. We're going to do our meditation together. Then we're going to do this. We're going to do yoga. Then we do business. Or do you just sort of jump in and then see how it goes? Because sometimes things work. Sometimes things don't work. So do you have a practice, like a set rules of the game maybe, before you start?
At what point do you put an agreement in place? And how detailed do you get about that agreement, like in writing? You know, you're making stuff up as you go. So how do you do that? How do you set the ground rules for each other? And what happens, you know, if something changes along the way and your vision isn't the same, and et cetera?
I'm looking at Joe, I'm like, wow, these are sophisticated questions, man. Roger Hamilton.
Where should you find this business partner? Is it usually a friend? Do you recommend friends? Do you not recommend friends? Where's the best place to fish for a business partner, basically?
So my question is, how do you, I mean, if you have success there, or if you do develop this, how can you keep this on a level that people not falling back like the meditation guy into like a depression? Because
Okay, I hear you.
Hey,
Roger?
Khailee. So we were talking at lunch, and you were saying that your whole team went through wealth dynamics and so on. So you are now going out finding these 500 companies and working with them, and that's obviously investment partnerships, which is kind of different from what you guys did as a company partnership. So I'm really interested in what you see the differences in project partnerships, kind of getting together and doing something, company partnerships, where you're getting together and being partners, and investment partnerships, where you're actually going to be putting money in.
Okay, that's more than enough for us to handle today. So I think we'll thanks so much, everybody. What we'll do, I think we'll talk about finding a business partner first, right? I think it's how do we find a business partner?
Yeah, so perhaps, I'll just start with, story a little bit about myself. So before I met Khailee, I was at an interesting phase in life. So I was in this entrepreneurship show, very similar to like The Apprentice, by Donald Trump. And then I won it, and then there was a lot of interviews, and I felt like, I wasn't very successful, because I was running a business that was really small at that point of time. After I won the TV show, and I just felt that, like the thing that I was doing, I was not proud of it. And it was something that I wanted to scale even faster. So what I did was I organized an entrepreneurship conference and invited like young speakers to come and speak. So all these speakers were below the age of 30. Yeah, and so I noticed a certain pattern that the ones that had really big scalable businesses that had a lot of impact on people were using technology, right? And so happened Khailee was in that technology slot, and he was speaking at it. And through his stories, I realized that he wasn't really an entrepreneur. It was like, so he was
I was the same mode as him. We had these small little project things that didn't really make that much money.
Yeah, so that's when I realized that there was something similar, right? And then I invited Khailee out on a date, and we walked around, we had dinner, we walked around
In this really crappy shopping mall. This was it.
And then I guess like what we found in similar, it was that we enjoy working with young people. We want to make a difference in the world, but at the same time we want to make some money out of it. So I think that was something we had in common, but we actually didn't have a business model. All right. So that was something we had in common, and that's how we started off. Yeah.
And I think like tapping into that story of how we kind of found each other as business partners was also that he noticed that the most successful entrepreneurs that spoke at his conference used technology a lot. But he could not partner with any of them because they were already making tens and hundreds of millions. And he wasn't, so he couldn't partner with any of them. And he saw me, wait a minute, this guy knows technology really well and he's not making too much. Maybe I can work with this guy, right? So he had engaged me as a consultant to look at his business. I was working, I was on my way out looking for my next thing to do after Mind Valley at the time. And like he engaged me as a consultant to look at his business model, see how technology can be used to make more money. So we spent 5 months working together, and I distinctly remember every time I met him and spoke to him, I said, okay, we need to look at these few things. Let's say I spoke about 3 things. He would come back having executed 5. I would talk about another 2 more things, and he'd come back with 6 things that he's executed. And I would use words, throw out concepts, which he would rapidly adopt and execute. And this action dynamic was so addictive. I had never seen this type of action dynamic anyone my age, or even above my age. So fast, rapid execution. So I was like, wow, this is great. I just keep talking and he keeps doing, and this is gonna be good. So eventually we decided to try out a business model and work on something. I think that let's relate to the next question about rituals. Did we start off with any ritual? or any practice?
Yeah, thanks for asking back the question. All right, so I think like what maybe to answer the question on like what I was looking for in a business partner was someone who's actually different than myself. You know, someone who's like for me, I find myself like really good in building like action machines. You know, I mean like putting people together, putting processes together. But the thing is that the team wasn't divergent enough. We were not like exploring like new ideas. We were not going broad enough to then later converge into better solutions, right? And also businesses in the age today, you need to like diverge and converge many multiple times. So I found that in Khailee. So I think embracing diversity is something someone who is different than yourself, I think is going to help in finding a business partner. If you find someone similar like yourself, you don't get much value out of the person. In terms of rituals, there are a few things that actually we practice. I find that was really good. So the first one was the 24-hour rule of conflict, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I was pissed about something or he was pissed about something, and it was often at the early stage because it's a teething period. You got to like sort of learn each other's ways of contributing to the business. So when I was trying to put an action plan, he was diverging, right? He was coming out 200 ideas, right? But at the same time, I was trying, we've got something to put together for like 2 days to present to an investor, right? So those are the times that that 24-hour rule of conflict really help. So within 24 hours, you're pissed out about something, you got to like solve it, right? You got to like confront.
We never, the rule we kind of unconsciously then consciously agreed on is that if we've got something that any tension arises within our working relationship, we get it solved in 24 hours. Nothing more than 24 hours. You have 24 hours to decide whether it's worth solving, and most of the time it is. And we get on the phone, we speak to face, and we crush it. So anything tension arises, is crushed. Tension arises, is crushed. Tension arises, is crushed. So it never really balls up to something that destroys everything. One thing about practices are sort of related to the thing about business partner selection. In any sort of, even in startups I invest in, I'm looking for people who can evolve. And I've seen Joel evolve 100 times. And I've been in situations where I had to evolve like countless times to shred my own identity and kind of acquire a new one. So I'll give one specific story. We're going into a sales meeting together. Okay, and this is my first sales meeting in my entire life. Before that, I taught myself web design when I was age 15, and I've been just designing websites for people mostly. All my work is done behind a laptop screen. And I didn't want to go. I'm like, why do you need me there? He's like, well, because you actually know what's going on. So you're going to have to be in that room. It's like, okay, cool. So we go to that presentation. It was a government project. There were like people sitting around, and why are all these people here? There's like 30 people in this room. We were pitching, we were presenting, you're asking questions. So I was answering all the questions. Joel's like looking at me, looking at the room. We walked out of the room, and Joel asked me, how do you think we did? I said, we did fantastic. Look how interested they were. They were asking all these questions. I'm sure they really like us. Joel's like, we lost it. It's gone. I was like, what do you mean? So we drove back in the car, and he unraveled what was actually going on. Why did that person ask this question? Why are they asking questions in this direction? Who's got something to gain, something to lose in the meeting? That stuff like that. It says when you go out and sell, when you go to present, it's not just about you saying, it's about you listening. And you got to listen into actually what the hell's going on. And I was crushed. It's like you watch a movie, and towards the end, it unravels in a way where, the plot totally changed. That person's the murderer, and, I was crushed. I actually broke down in tears. I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't want to sell. I never want to go to a sales meeting again, ever. So he was quiet. I said, dude, don't break down. Are you crying? Wait, stop. Why? Stop crying, dude. What? Shit.
That's one thing I didn't sign up for,
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I didn't sign up for this shit. What is this guy? So he's driving back. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to connect with his emotions. He's just, so I just put a wall over there. I'm like, I don't want to do this sales thing anymore. I fucked up big time. So then we go for lunch, and he says, Khailee, if you don't want to do it anymore, you don't have to do any sales. Just, don't have to do it. I'm not gonna make you go do sales anymore. But if you want to do it, we're gonna learn together. And then I ate my chicken rice. and ate my chicken rice. I said, you know what? Let's do it. So I shred my geek identity, and I Googled how to be a good salesperson. A lot of it, I found that a lot had to do with sharing what you believe in. I internalized that. I reinvented myself. And the same thing with Joel. So many times, so many things. You know, he used to use like Microsoft Outlook as his email. Like, so, okay, no Hayden, anyone who uses Microsoft Outlook. But like everyone was using Gmail at the time. Everyone my age was using Gmail at the time, and you're using Microsoft Outlook. So he kind of learned technology along the way. But basically, I tell you that story is because I think it's really important to choose business partners who can adapt and evolve. People are too chained up to their own identity. Oh no, I'm a tech guy. Oh no, I'm this. This is not what I do. This is not my job. You know, they don't have that agility to evolve with the business. As the business grows, sometimes there are new needs you got to fill, and if you can't fill those needs, you're not going to be that effective of a business partner. So I think the quality of finding someone who can evolve very quickly is a good one. What about other questions? Rituals. Oh, when you put on an agreement. When do we? For 2 years, I don't think I had an agreement. Only when we needed to raise money from a VC, right?
Yeah, I think we are probably bad examples in this.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah,
don't.
Yeah, we decided to just split everything half. You know what I mean? And so it was interesting because at one point of time when Groupon wanted to acquire a company, and only one of the companies was relevant. And we had to sort of like split up the leadership of the business because one person had to run Groupon and the other person had to run the other set of companies, so we decided to just split it half. Even though like Khailee is not working on Groupon, I'm not working on what he's doing, but because we started off as like good friends, we didn't want to like that agreement or anything to change, us supporting each other, so we just split it half.
And it worked out really well because like we are common shareholders in both businesses and all the businesses we do, so we're always happy to help each other out, in anything that we need, so that worked out for us. I don't necessarily think that's the best way for anybody else. So next question. What was it? Agreement. Where should you find this business? Where? At conferences? I don't know. I think you can find it in all sorts of places. I think what arose from our discussion yesterday about finding business partners is sometimes you just meet someone you really like and you want to start a business together, right? So it's not so much I've got a business model and idea. Okay, let me look for a business partner. Sometimes you meet somebody and say, you know what? Whatever it is, we're gonna have to do something together because something just feels right. So I think both instances happens, like it happens both ways, and both ways create a dynamic which is quite different. Because when you want to work with somebody because you just really want to work with that person, you guys could pick a business model which doesn't play to your strengths, or maybe which forces you to evolve very quickly to have those strengths. And that's a whole other conversation, as opposed to if you already have a business idea. We're talking about the heist day for yesterday. You know what the mission is, you know who is needed. That makes finding a business partner much easier. Let's say you want to launch a suite of iOS apps to kill Angry Birds and Candy Crush. You're going to need some game developers. You probably want a CTO who's good at hiring and managing game developers. And if you're not a tech guy, you know who you need. So that makes it easier when you know what business you need to do and what skills are required in the core DNA of the founders.
Yeah, another framework I find that could be useful for you if you are looking for a co-founder is a why, what, how framework. So I think it's important to have like a shared goal on why you are actually working together on a business. So whether is it like for us, we were just like a bunch of 20-year-olds who want to change the world, make a little bit of money, and work with young people and get the best out of them. So that was like why we came together, and that's why our business evolved so many times. We had like multiple business models.
And we're so ambiguous, we're so vague.
And we couldn't raise money, right, in the first 2 years because we didn't have a business model. We were just passionate about working young people and just building
investors
stuff.
Looked at our stuff and like, well, what are you guys doing? It doesn't make any sense. So
yeah, so I think but we had sort of like a clear why we were working together, and then like what we were working on was then all these random business models that eventually we were fortunate that some of the investors saw some potential in it and then invested in it, and the how is where I personally recommend someone that is totally like different from yourself. Because that's when you get a real diversity of like, different ideas and different ways of doing things, right? So you have commonalities on top, but you have the differentiations and the differences at the bottom, right? So that gives you a good, like, sort of holistic way of, leveraging from each
And
other.
I think Roger Hamilton, you've got the wealth dynamics and the wealth spectrum's got really good models understanding different types of people that's required for a journey. You're speaking later today, right? So maybe you guys can also ask Roger about that as well, because he's got a more sophisticated framework about it. The next question was, how do you keep people from falling back, right? Or how do you keep yourselves from falling back as you keep pushing the business? That's interesting. Is there anything to...
Yeah, so I guess like, in just the way that so my personal experience, sort of apart from Khailee, was just building Groupon. So when they first acquired the company, we were 8 people, and then by a year we had like 200 people, and then they gave me extended roles to now manage the Asia Pacific region. So I think it was like my first journey from like a startup entrepreneur to managing something that's like of a bigger scale. So how do you keep like 2,500 people across the region from not falling back? I think the first thing is is transparency and accountability. I think to me, like if you put everything else aside, like transparency and accountability is like the number one thing that you need to establish.
And that's transparency about what the goals are, or what the metrics,
yeah, what the goals
key
are,
metrics are,
like where, like and just really, I find like measuring stuff is like really important. So for example, if a person in an organization knows what his goals are and how he's measured on, and whether he or she knows whether he's failing or not in the shortest time frame possible, whether is it a daily report, weekly report, or a monthly dashboard that they can see their progress or they're not progressing, then it helps them to understand like their personal game and how they can help the company to succeed. Then I think accountability is when you have transparency, that's when you breed accountability. If not, it's very difficult for someone to sort of step up into the role.
Without like clear metrics and a clear kind of external measurement, a lot of it becomes very personal very quickly. I think that's what kind of he's trying to say as well. So the same thing with resolving conflicts. I think yesterday we talked about how do you resolve conflicts between business partners. For us, and also similar to what we're saying about keeping people falling back, is that when you got something external to focus on, it's not personal. It's not about egos or who's got the right idea or wrong idea. It's that who's got the best idea to actually solve that thing, the why. So for both of us, like I've never been in a situation at all where I felt that there was a personal attack or there's some kind of ego being pushed around. Never, not for a second. Every time we were discussing or debating something, it's usually because like we're trying to find alignment of what's that common thing that we want to achieve. So that constant 24-hour rule, realignment kept us on like a train tracks, like Ruby on Rails. We're just speeding through super fast. So I think the transparency, accountability, measuring what is it? Oh, do we want to increase sales by 100%, or do you want to increase customer retention? It's kind of having these metrics really help. Okay, this is the last question. We've got 5 minutes on our clock. About project partnerships. This is Roger's question about how project partnerships or company partnerships, like how do they differ? What are the nuances inside? Joel, any thoughts?
No, not on this topic. Like.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm observing. I'll tell you what I'm observing. I think it will be more and more frequent, and it'll be more popular to do project partnerships like moving forward. I think that's a more popular model, and it's a more popular model because there's a lot of projects. It's just more and more projects. It's not so much you're building a company that's gonna last for 100 years. Yeah, you have that, and you also have these short-term projects. You want to put an event together. You want to do a launch together. You want to do, specific things. And once that goal is achieved, then the partnership is dissolved. So I think that scenario is happening more and more frequently. And I think that scenario is quite efficient when because you know what the outcome is. It's to do this launch in December. It's New Year's Eve launch or whatnot, right? And you know who you need to get the job done. You pull them in. You guys have very clear ways of splitting the profit once you're done with that. That makes things really, really clear, and that's really good. When it comes to building a company over 10, 20 years, that's where I think that gets a little bit difficult. And because you can't predict what the outcomes will be, and the outcomes will keep changing, that's why I fall back on whether or not your business partner is flexible, adaptable, keeps evolving, whether you guys have no ego in the room, you guys are constantly clear and realigning onto a common goal. But I do see dynamics between choosing a long-term partner in a romantic relationship and also choosing a partner in a business relationship, and sometimes in your family where you can't choose your mom or dad and you can't choose your brothers or sisters, how you should resolve things. The skills you learn in one helps with the other. So I think you guys probably know a lot more about managing partnerships, or at least know a lot more things not to do when managing partnerships that you can translate into your business. Yeah, we'll take 2 more questions. We've got time for 2 more. Please.
Thank you. Relationships and profitability, which one's more important?
That's a good question. I think our relationship, we came together for profitability, so I don't know. Like, I think we would, you know, if we weren't making too much money, I don't think we'd be working with each other after a while. I mean, that's why I think.
Or perhaps you could clarify the question, you know, maybe with an example or, you know, something.
All right, so stressors happen in a relationship, right? And it stresses the relationship to the point where, you know, one wants to take a direction because you're working on some big projects, at least in my eyes. So I've had some challenges with partners in the past where it's like, ooh, you know, I wanted to kick him out the car and, you know, it's like, but it's a long time relationship. But I have a different vision than that person did because sometimes you can't be in agreement every time.
Yeah. So perhaps, you know, I find that if I were to simplify, there are three kinds of people, right? So there's one that's like a socialist or idealist, right, who just wants to, like, you know, realize the idea. And then there's the capitalist who wants to just make money out of the idea. And then there's like the in-between, right? A socialist and a capitalist, right? Who sort of
do both.
Who likes the intimacy of, you know, the realizing the idea at the same time making some money out of it. So I think, like, in that aspect, like, you know, so Khailee and myself, we are both like, you know, we are idealists and socialists at the same time as we want to make some money out of it and make it sustainable. So I think that's what we have in common. So, you know, I find like certain working relationships, if you're working with someone who just wants to like realize the idea but not make money, and they find that making money out of the idea is bad, for example, then there's a different, you know, belief system and values.
Or not so important, or something you shouldn't focus on, you know, then I think then the value system is too far apart, your poles apart. I think it's very hard to reconcile, it's very hard to meet in the middle. And every time you meet in the middle, you feel like you're cutting off an arm or a leg. You feel that this compromise, you know, and that breeds resentment and bitterness, you know, if you guys are too far apart in the first place and trying to come together all the time. One more question. Oh, I don't know how to choose. The beatboxer. Like, we'll take all these questions. We'll listen to all of them and see what we can do in 30 seconds.
Hi. So how do you resolve conflict between the two of you? Do you do it in a room where nobody is listening, or do you do it in front of employees? How do you do it?
Generally, doing it in front of people, I think, is not a good idea. Yeah, so we try and do it in private. Okay, next question. Sorry, it's 10 seconds left on the clock. We'll talk more later.
I was just going to say, once you've actually found your business partner and you're ready to embark on this venture, what are the key things to action to actually get the plan moving? Is it like, oh, we have to get that website straight up immediately, or
Action man over here is happy to answer that question.
Thanks.
Yeah, or do we get that service out there? Like, what are the key things to actually get the ball rolling?
Okay, so I think, like, you know, in the business space that we are in today, you know, like, you need to diverge and converge continuously. So I think, like, there's, you know, like, every week what we do is that we talk about broader stuff and try to explore, like, what are things that we have not tried yet and so on, right? But eventually it all needs to converge into, like, action plans. But at the same time, you know, we don't want to, like, keep continuing on the same action plan, because out of 10 things that we do, maybe only 3 is working. Usually that's the case, or 2 is working. And the other 7 or 8 is not working in the best way possible. So I think it's something that's a continuous process. I wouldn't say that once you've talked about the idea and put in the action plan, then you just follow that for the next 12 months. I don't think that's going to help.
And what creates a lot of conflict is when we're trying to have a divergent discussion to kind of explore space, right, or come up with some ideas. Then somebody in the room is always like, look, we need to decide, we need to do this. He's trying to converge, right? And then of us give it more ideas. Why is he saying all that? How distracting can he be? But at other times where you need to diverge, you need to find another way out of a problem, you know, and the guy who's just trying to, okay, so what is it? Is it this or is it this? You know, he's not helping. So within a business relationship or even in a meeting, it's really important for everyone to know, look, we're going to diverge a little bit and explore the space. Last 10 minutes, we're going to converge on 1 or 2 things we want to do. And if you can make that clear to everyone in that discussion, like this simple thing alone is going to resolve so much potential conflict in the entire journey, right? That especially between business partners, or maybe because he's so convergent, I'm so divergent, it helps us even more. But I think it's going to help a lot of people. And that'll help you actionize things like step 1, step 2, step 3 very clearly, especially when things are not that clear.
Yeah, and I guess, like, in the starting phase, the more you do this, the more successful you're going to become, right? You're more like you're going to find out how fast you can fail and how fast you can succeed.
And it gets really addictive. You kind of like, okay, like discussions between Joel and myself, we know it's like, okay, this is it, okay, so is it? Okay, boop. Then we just immediately, within like 10 minutes, we've explored a lot of ideas and we've zoomed in on 3 things we need to do. It becomes so fast because you're conscious. You're doing this and you're doing this. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for exploring this topic with us.